Alrighty, this is a new dowel jig that I made. Found it on the internet. Really nice little dowel jig. Took me several hours to make it, and then turned a bunch of scrap wood into hardwood dowels. If you go buy this maple dowel, which you can't find, but if you go buy this maple dowel at the Lowe's, you're going to pay a little bit of money for it. It's going to probably cost you $2 for that dowel, and that was a piece of scrap that came out of my scrap bin. There's another one just like it. Um, it's kind of funny. This is my first, when I first bolted the thing up, run it through there, I had my blade too tall, and the stock is square whenever you put it in there. These are for 3/8 inch dowels, and what I did is I just put a jig up here on the bandsaw, took all my scrap, run it through this, and then just feed it. Not much of a kerf, not a lot of waste. It goes pretty fast, and that's just a way of getting a straight cut. Worked real well. So these were all square like this, less than 45 minutes ago, and I was just learning. But the first one I ran, of course, my blade was too high, and I thought, oh boy, this is really nasty. So then I turned it down a little bit more, and the next dowel came out a little better. And I thought, okay, let's crank her down one more time. And then the walnut dowel was just getting close to it. And then from then on out, everything was dialed in, and so yeah, just using this dowel for a little bit. He's taking my scraps and putting it to use. Right now I have probably, these are all hardwood, so they're there's probably $30 worth of hardwood dowels there now. And of course, you go out here and you buy these things. That's $1.08 for that, and I'm gonna be making some 1/4 inches. The 3/8 inch dowels, that's what I've been making. They're $1.28 each. So when you add that up, it adds up. So I mean, there was $13 of dowels right there, and I've used that many, $13-14 of dowels on making these lanterns. So these that I've made here were bought by the store, and so I was wanting to fabricate them to where they're made out of hardwoods, and so yeah. Anyway, so it's coming along, and I'm getting it to where I'll get down and get it done. I did do enjoy making this jig today. Tomorrow I'll take another set of these blocks, and take 2 of these and put them in this. I'll back these out right here, and those are carriage bolts that I recessed in there and put a T-nut on the backside. So I modified this design just a little bit better. Those other nuts come out, and then I marked on the top of it how they go in, just so that in the size of them, so I know what they are. Tomorrow I'll take these and make another set for 1/4 inch dowels, and I ripped down some more stock that's old junk bin stock. I mean I got a couple drawers full of junk that they just hangs around, and it's in the way most of the time, and it's kind of nice to be able to take it and put it to use. So there it is. There's a doweling jig, and that is a dandy. All right, I pulled my scrap bin out, pulled out some maple, some walnut, or some oak, and some of it was 1/4 to 3/8 to inch stock, and then I resawed it on this little jig for the bandsaw. This is just about a 3/8 inch blade, 1/4 inch maybe, and just this jig with the rounded bull nose on it, and it makes it pretty quick work to cut a bunch of them. There's probably 50 little dowels or a foot or so long, and I'm going to take that square stock and put it in here and run it through that little guy right there with the drill, and we're going to have a bunch of dowels out here in just a little bit. All right, well, I've actually been able to make some 1/4 inch dowels, and it came out pretty good. The only thing is it took me a while to get it dialed in, and I made this out of scrap. I mean, there's quite a bit there. I've made $7 or $8 worth of dowels here. I did learn that trying to back them out of there all I was doing is eating up all my stock because it was breaking on me. So there's going to be a little square waist on these things. Don't know any way of getting around it. Uh, um, you know, it just, if you try and put it in there backwards, it'll just keep snapping that because there's not enough mass in that 1/4 inch dowel to hold it with the force against the bit and turning it. So this one here, I had a little trouble getting lined up, so I took a long bit, and after I got it lined up, I of course lowered the blade and started from the backside, but I ran a drill bit through both of them to get it to line up. And then, and you know, it's just basically chucking it in your bit. Don't need a socket. And let me go ahead and fire this thing up. Turn off the dust collection. And just feed it down in there like that. Turn on your bit. If it's stiff, you need to tighten the blade. But if you get it dialed in perfect, it'll just come right out of there. And of course, any wobbling you do, I mean, that thing hasn't been sanded at all. My paper oven, it looks like a, you know, store-bought dowel. So I am going to leave them square on there because if I don't, it just eats them up trying to get a hook on them. Anyway, there you go. All right. Well, we all know what cedar looks like. We know that it's pretty brittle. This was a piece of scrap that I had laying over there. It's about 1.5 inches or so wide, and I thought, well, that's not going to be used for anything. It's about 3/8 of an inch thick. So I resawed it down. And there you have it. Nice little dowel squared there, round all the way around. Hit it with a couple wraps of just sandpaper, spinning it, and it's nice and smooth 1/4 inch cedar dowel. There you go. It took me a little while to dial in the 1/4 inch. The 3/8 went in fine. You know, if it wasn't just exactly, well, the 3/8 just handled the mass much better. The 1/4 inch, you got to be a little more finicky about getting the stuff through there. The oak seems to be so far the worst. Maple does real well. I'm gonna run some of this oak through. This is a doweling jig that makes dowels. It's not actually a doweling jig, but it makes the dowels for doweling jigs. And I'm making a bunch of frontiers and lanterns, so I needed a jig to take some scrap and turn them into dowels. I had put this thing together, and it was just a 1/16 of an inch out of square, so I used the clamp to bring it back into square after I had put the screws on it before the glue set. And this is some stock that I made for these inserts in the middle of it. I just had there's some oak and maple and different stuff, just some hardwoods that I had. Was milling it up so that it would fill in, create some blocks that would go in the middle of the jig. And those blocks I'm gluing up, they would fit in this socket right here. This is all made out of red oak, this resalvaged red oak that I had pulled out of a cabinet. I did change the design from GrinWoods and Skechers woodworking. They had used inserts, and I used just a carriage bolt, recessed it down in, and put a T-nut on the inside of it for the nuts. Other than that, I did make this dimension here just a little bit taller off the table so the drill would fit. And I just learned a couple things from what they had done, and they have videos that show this going together much better than what I'm doing. And of course, I haven't sanded anything or even got it, you know, going. But anyway, works good. Um, there's a picture of your carriage bolts. This is a good idea with the wing nuts and the nuts, and that came out good. Of course, there it is going in and pushing in. The round cover can probably keep the blocks from getting dented, and in that, so they go in and adjust and keep the blocks tight. This is a little bullnose jig just for resawing your stock. You know, said if you're cutting 3/8 inch dowels, you want it at a 1/2 inch. If you're cutting 1/4 inch dowels, you want it at 3/8. This to mention, just throw your stock in there and then flip it over and turn it again, and pretty soon you got all kinds of stock. There's just very little saw dust created from the bandsaw curve, so you're not wasting much of your material. And you'd be it's really surprising how fast you can do it. It's almost as fast as ripping on table saw. You just keep it on there and keep it up against that bullnose right there, and it works out real well. Used my CNC machine and made me 6 more of these yesterday, so that one's pretty bad shape. It was my dowels, cutting those dowels, and it was getting a little bit
cattywampus on me. These are some of the blanks that I just got through cutting. Some maple and some oak, some white oak and some red oak. And when I got down to the sizes of the 3/8, there was no problem. I could chuck them up, use a gator socket, stick them up there, and run them through the 3/8 was no problem at all. Then turn around and then do the other side. So I made a bunch of nice 3/8 dowels. But when I moved them down into the 1/4 inch, uh, what was happening was when I would chuck up the drill and put it on the 1/4 inch and try and pull it back through, and then it was just consuming all of my stock. And the torque would just just basically break the dowels into an inch and a half or whatever. So I learned that that wasn't going to work. I did notice on quite a few of these things that table saw blade is exposed. Um, Guys, we need to put guards up there in front of those things. There's one on the back side, so whenever I'm using this, you'd have to stick your finger in the hole to get a cut, and uh, so that's not a good idea. I did on the 3/8 put one of them little taper bits that you cut sheet metal with and made a taper. That worked fine, but I did find on the 1/4 inch bits that no, I couldn't do that because the tolerance was a lot less, and so I recut these blocks here. This is a 1 inch hole, but this is the blocks that I tapered that in, and I went back and made another set with the 3/8 on this side and then the 1/4 inch on the back side. So then I keyed them and basically put on their fence so that I can remember it. Made a nice box to store them all in. But there's your guard on the back side. There's no blade coming out anywhere on this thing on both sides. Again, this side was up a little bit higher, but you could make this block a little wider than what it is from the plans, and that would cover your blade up. Also, you could also make just a long board jig that's set on top of it. But this one works pretty well, and enjoy using it. Yeah, you definitely don't want that blade up anywhere in there to where you can get your hand back in there, because it is our tendency to reach back in there and grab those dowels. So that's not a good thing. These are some walnut dowels. My first try, it's easier to bring your blade up than dial it down. Just bring it down, and that gives you a much nicer dowel about the third time out. Of course, I ran the whole thing through, which you could just run a little bit, and then run a little bit, and run a little bit, and not waste the material. But hey, it was all junk, just junk old firewood stuff that I was getting ready to throw in the fire. And hey, came out with $30-40 worth of dowels that I was buying for these lanterns that I'm making, and these are the vertical riser sticks. And it's kind of fun to make some out of all the different woods that I'm making them out of. So guess there it is, and been having fun with it, and that's a good find on that jig. I don't know for sure who made it, but there's a couple of them like that on the web. One of the guys is using Baltic Birch, which I probably would like that, but I didn't have any, so I ended up making mine out of just a hardwood oak that I had. And it's funny, I bought that hardwood oak at a garage sale for the cabinet. It was $5, and there was $360 worth of red oak in that cabinet. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So I snatched it. So hey, when you're going around looking for garage sales, you never know what's going to be on the shelf for $5. So I made all kinds of stuff out of that reclaimed walnut and oak.